You're 20, checking IDs at a warehouse gate at 2 a.m. for $14.50 an hour. There are executive protection agents in this country who out-earn some of the executives on their own detail, and the unarmed guard job that starts this career still pays less than a fast food shift lead. Between that gate and that detail sits an industry where the actual product was never toughness. It was discretion. This is every level of a private security career in America and what the ceiling actually looks like. If you like breakdowns of how careers actually progress, like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Level 1. The unarmed guard. You're 19 and the job is standing, mostly. The median pay for a security guard nationally is $16.51 an hour, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, though plenty of gate posts and warehouse contracts pay closer to $14. You work for a contract security company, one of the big ones, Allied Universal or G4S or Securitas, because the company ordered a batch size for someone else and handed you the closest one. Your post is a warehouse gate on the overnight shift, and your job is checking a list against a badge, logging trucks in and out on a clipboard, and staying awake. You carry no weapon. You carry a flashlight and a radio that drops signal past the loading dock. Nothing happens for 6 months. Then, at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, a car you don't recognize pulls up to the gate with its lights off, and the driver doesn't have a badge and doesn't want to talk, and you're the only person standing between whatever's in that car and the property behind you. You don't have a weapon. You have a radio, a flashlight, and a company policy that says observe and report, don't engage. You call it in. The car sits for 11 seconds, then reverses and leaves. Nothing happened. You still don't sleep that day. Your supervisor tells you that you did it exactly right. You start applying for your unarmed guard card, a state-mandated certification that takes 8 hours of coursework in most states and a background check, and you start looking at the armed guard requirements, because the armed post pays $3 to $5 an hour more, and you already know you can stand still for 8 hours. You just want to be able to do something if the car doesn't leave next time. Level 2. The armed guard. You're 22 and you got your armed guard license, which requires firearms qualification, additional classroom hours, and, in most states, a clean criminal background with no disqualifying convictions. You now carry a Glock 19 on your hip at a bank branch, and the pay bumped to around $19 to $22 an hour. You requalify on the range every 6 months, and the instructor tells you the same thing every time. The gun is the last option, not the first one. Your actual job is presence, de-escalation, and knowing the difference between a customer having a bad day and an actual threat, and getting that read wrong in either direction costs you the job, or worse. You work an armoured transport route for a few months too, riding beside a driver hauling cash boxes between branches, and you learn the actual choreography of it, timed stops, no improvising the route, because armoured car robbery, while rare, is one of the more violent categories of crime against this trade, and the 2 seconds between the truck door opening and closing is the only vulnerability that matters. You get moved to a private residential contract next, guarding the gate of a tech executive's estate, 12-hour shifts, and it's here you first see it. The other kind of security. A different guy shows up in a suit, not a uniform, driving the principal's actual car, standing 18 inches off his shoulder at the front door instead of a booth by the gate, and he makes more in a day than you make in a week. You ask him how he got that job. He says, I used to stand exactly where you're standing. Level 3. The Bodyguard. You're 26 and you left the uniformed contract world for close protection, working for a boutique agency that services corporate executives and the occasional visiting public figure. The pay here is contract-based, often $400 to $800 a day depending on the client's profile and the agency's rate, though you're not working every day yet, so the annual number is closer to $55,000 to $70,000 while you build a reputation. Your actual skill set shifts completely. You learn route planning, advance work, walking a venue 2 hours before the principal arrives to map every exit and every choke point. You learn to read a crowd for the one person whose body language doesn't match everyone else's excitement, the person standing still while everyone around them moves toward the principal. Then it happens. You're on a mall appearance detail for a minor celebrity client, and a man breaks through the rope line at a bad angle, moving fast, hand already reaching into his jacket. You don't wait to see what's in the jacket. You're already moving your body between him and your principal, your hand already on the man's forearm redirecting the reach before it clears the jacket, and two other agents are on him half a second behind you. It's a phone. He wanted a selfie. Nobody outside the four of you who were there will ever know how close that felt from the inside. Your principal doesn't even notice it happened. And that's the actual definition of a job done right in this trade. Not stopping the threat visibly. Stopping it so quietly the client never knows there was one. Level 4. The Executive Protection Specialist. You're 31, and you've moved into full-time executive protection for a Fortune 500 company's C-suite. A completely different pay tier because this work is now a full-time salaried corporate security role. You get certified through an organization like the Executive Protection Institute, and you learn medical response, defensive driving, and threat assessment at a level the more detailed version of this job never touched. Your actual client now is a company's general counsel more than the executive themselves, because your job exists primarily to reduce the company's liability exposure. You run advance work on a shareholder meeting where an activist investor with a documented history of confrontations is expected to attend, and your report to the general counsel isn't about physical danger. It's about optics, about which entrances minimize the chance of a photograph that damages the stock price. You start to understand that discretion, not toughness, is the actual product you sell now. Level 5. The Detail Leader. You're 38, and you run protective details rather than standing on them, coordinating a team of 6 to 10 agents across a principal's home, office, and travel for an ultra-high net worth family office. Your pay is now $150,000 to $250,000 a year because the family's risk manager and their general counsel both report your findings directly to the principal. You negotiate contracts with the outside agencies who supply overflow coverage during high travel periods, and you learn that agency owners bill the family $150 an hour per agent while paying the agent on the ground $35 to $45 of that. You start to understand where the actual margin in this business lives, and it isn't in the 18 inches next to the principal. It's in the contract that sets the billing rate for everyone standing there. A threat assessment consultant you hired flags a specific, credible pattern of surveillance around the family's youngest child's school. You restructure the school route, the drop-off timing, and the visible security presence at pickup without ever telling the school why, because telling them why creates a bigger problem than the one you're solving. The threat pattern stops within 3 weeks. Nobody outside your team ever knows it existed. Level 6. The Principal Level Advisor. You're 47, and you no longer run details. You run risk. You're a security consultant retained directly by family offices and corporate boards, sometimes for a single strategic engagement, sometimes on an ongoing retainer running $10,000 to $30,000 a month, to assess and restructure an entire protective posture rather than execute it. Your actual product now is the written assessment, the protocol, and your name attached to the recommendation, because the family or the board is paying for your judgment, not your physical presence. You sit across from a billionaire client, discussing a specific, credible threat that surfaced from a disgruntled former employee, and the conversation isn't about deploying more agents. It's about legal options, about whether to notify law enforcement now or gather more evidence first, about the exact cost-benefit of visible security presence versus discreet coverage that doesn't alert the subject that he's being watched. You've stood 18 inches from 3 billionaires this year, not as muscle, but as the person they call before they call anyone else when something feels wrong. Almost nobody outside this narrow world knows your name, and that's not an accident. It's the same discretion you sold on your very first uniformed post at the warehouse gate, just priced at a completely different number now. Final beat. 3 frames. The first, the unarmed guard at the warehouse gate, watching a car sit for 11 seconds with nothing but a flashlight and a radio, believing the job was about being ready to physically stop something. The second, the bodyguard on the mall detail, moving his body between a threat and a principal in under a second, believing that split-second readiness was the whole answer. The third, the advisor in the boardroom who learned the actual asset was never the readiness to react. It was the judgment to know, months in advance, exactly what never needed reacting to at all. The warehouse gate is still out there. Somewhere tonight, a 19-year-old is standing at it, badge that doesn't fit, radio that drops signal past the loading dock, waiting for a car that probably won't come. The work is the same. The proximity is not. You stand the post, you read the crowd, you move your body first, or you become the person whose judgment means nobody's body ever has to.